former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers said about Build Back Better. I don't think that's an inflation problem. He said if he was in Congress, he would vote for it.
But, you know, the administration's budget and the administration's forecast with this stimulus was that this year we'd have 2% inflation, and it's likely to come in 3 times that. I think they're just not recognizing just how much demand is being created by the tremendous wall of money, 15% of GDP in 1 year that they released last spring. And that, in conjunction with a central bank, the Fed, that keeps the interest rate at zero, buying all kinds of bonds and mortgages when the middle of a housing boom, just sets off a dynamic. And then the thing about inflation is you start chasing your tail. Rising inflation of inputs leads firms to raise their prices. That leads other firms to raise their prices. And the whole thing spirals. I think that the policymakers in Washington, unfortunately, have almost every month been behind the curve. They said it was transitory. It doesn't look so transitory. They said it was due to a few specific factors. It doesn't look to be a few specific factors.
Where do you think inflation will be at the end of this year?
Well, let me go to 2022.
No, if you could go to the end of 2021 first for me.
That those numbers will come down.
But by the end of this year?
I believe that will come down toward 2%. But typically inflation rates...
Secretary, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but my question was pretty simple.
At that point, it wouldn't be transitory. How long do you think inflation is going to go up?
I think the odds are that we're going to have inflation of a kind we haven't seen in 30 years until either the Fed takes some significant move with respect to monetary policy or until there's some kind of accident.
Transitory inflation that message is reaching them. Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, it is our job to, and we accept responsibility and accountability for inflation in the medium term. We're accountable to Congress and to the American people for maximum employment and price stability. The level of inflation we have right now is not at all consistent with price stability. By the way, we're also not at maximum employment, as I mentioned. So
you said that it's a workers' market and that some industries need to create more competitive packages, that it's a good thing people have more choices. Is that your way of saying that the White House doesn't view this as a problem at all?
I think I also said in response to Weij's question that there are some industries where we're seeing labor shortages. Many people across the country feel this is a good time to change jobs, right? To look for a more competitive job. What I'm saying is ultimately that's a good thing.
On inflation, you mentioned unchecked inflation. There's nobody suggesting there's unchecked inflation on the way. No serious economist. Some folks have raised worries that this could be a sign of persistent inflation, but that's not our view. Our experts believe, and the data shows, that most of the price increases we've seen were expected and are expected to be temporary. At the same time, we're also experiencing higher demand for goods because wages are up, as well as people have money in the bank. They're staying home, they're ordering online, and they're buying product. But what happens? Prices go up.
Madam Secretary, when you were here last, I asked you to tell me what you thought inflation would be at the end of this year. And you told me 2%. Do you still stand by that prediction?
Clearly, inflation this year is going to be above 2%. Just the experience so far this year makes that clearly true. But I think we are seeing monthly inflation rates taper off.
Yes, ma'am. What do you think it'll be at the end of the year, if not 2%?
Probably closer to 4%.
Okay.
And that's already almost must be the case based on what's happened.
And Build Back Better is not going to cost anything. We're paying for it. It's important to also stress that it's not going to cost anything for the American taxpayer. That's about the cost of living going up. Something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, things costing more. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. And so we are doing what we can, making it probably one of our highest priorities. I talk to the president about it often. One of our highest priorities. We need to bring costs down for the American people.
When do you expect the inflation to get back to the 2% range, which is considered normal?
I expect improvement by the middle to end of next year, second half of next year.
Second half of 2022.
Which is a bigger threat, the climate or China?
We get paid to examine all the threats to our national security, and I don't know that it does anybody good to put some sort of relative analysis assessment on that. You've heard the Secretary talk about the climate as a real and existential national security threat, and it is, not just to the United States, but to countries all over the world. And we consider China as the number one pacing challenge for the department. Both are equally important.
By 2030 in the United States, we will not have coal plants. By 2035, President Biden has set a target that we will be, in our power sector, carbon-free.
What I'm hearing again from company after company in the United States and around the world is a clear focus on making sure, for example, that they're not providing technology to China or to anyone else that could be used to repress people. And similarly, that they're not engaged in businesses in business with entities or countries that are producing things based on forced labor.
As hypocrites, because they will speak in the United States, but they won't speak out when they do business in China. What do you think of that? And do you think that they have an obligation to speak out in a place like China?
I'll let businesses decide for themselves how they want to approach these issues. They're incredibly complicated. There are, I think, good faith arguments in various directions.
She said, we're not willing to say inflation is a problem. The supply chain's a problem. We don't have enough workers in our workforce. We gloss over that and only like to admit to problems in spaces we dominate. Do you agree?
Absolutely not, because I think we're dominating the economy.
Troubled industries and firms that are in transitioning. And here what I'm thinking about is primarily coal industry and oil and gas industry. A lot of the smaller players in that industry are going to probably go bankrupt in short order. At least we want them to go bankrupt if we want to tackle climate change, right?
Some Republicans who have taken this moment where they've seen gas prices spike to criticize sort of the administration big picture, right? Canceling the Keystone Pipeline, halting leases for new drilling leases on federal land, saying that sort of the administration's policies writ large have contributed to the rise in gas prices. What's your response now to that?
Look, our view is that the rise in gas prices over the long term makes an even stronger case for doubling down our investment and our focus on clean energy options.
On inflation as an action, but so far this week we haven't seen any action from the administration on gas prices.
We're not just closely and directly monitoring the situation, which of course we've been doing, but we're looking at every tool in our arsenal, are engaging with countries and entities abroad like OPEC, and we're looking at a range of options we have at our disposal, but I don't have anything here to preview for you. It's become a political cudgel, and it shouldn't be. It's impacting, as you said, millions of Americans, no matter their political party, and that's certainly of concern to the president. I would note that everyone from the Federal Reserve to Wall Street agree with our assessment that inflation is already expected to be substantially decelerate next year. And the Build Back Better bill that we are working to move forward will not add to inflationary pressure and will ease inflationary pressure. Our view is that the real risk here is inaction. If we don't act on Build Back Better, what we're doing is we won't be able to cut child care costs in 2020. This is not a bill that will add to inflationary pressure. And in fact, over the longer term, it will ease inflationary